Power in East Haven looked like routine. Patrol cars idling on corners, officers nodding to neighbors, trouble never far for those who stood out. When 3 police officers stopped 16-year-old Layla Brooks walking home, they saw only a quiet black girl, an easy target, alone and defenseless. Their show of force became violence. A lesson meant to teach her fear. But one phone call from her bruised hands would change everything, because what they did not know was that her father is the director of the FBI, and no badge could shield them from what was coming. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because the next story is one you do not want to miss. The sun cast long shadows across East Haven's cracked sidewalks as Layla Brooks walked home from her shift at Marshall's grocery. Her work apron was folded neatly in her backpack, replaced by her favorite purple hoodie. The air felt heavy with the day's lingering heat, but something else too. A tension that had become all too familiar in their small town. Layla's phone buzzed with another text from Amara. She smiled, pulling it out to read. "Girl, you are going to rock that Harvard interview. They would be crazy not to want you." "Thanks, Amara," Layla typed back. "Just need to finish that scholarship essay first. Mom says dreams are good, but backup plans are better." She added a laughing emoji, thinking of her mother's practical wisdom. The streetlights stood as silent witnesses to decades of East Haven's history. Some still had faded Black Lives Matter signs in their windows, remnants of protests from past summers. A police cruiser's engine rumbled behind her, moving slowly. Too slowly. Layla kept walking, her heart beginning to pound despite her best efforts to stay calm. The cruiser's tires crunched over loose gravel as it pulled alongside her. "Evening, miss?" called out a voice, thick with false sweetness. "Mind stopping for a moment?" Layla turned to face Sergeant Whitaker, his pale face illuminated by the dashboard lights. Officer Caldwell sat in the passenger seat, already reaching for his door handle. "Is there a problem, officer?" Layla asked, keeping her voice steady and polite, just as her parents had taught her. Her phone was still in her hand, and she subtly pressed the emergency recording button. Another lesson learned from too many similar stories. "Random check, that is all," Whitaker said, stepping out of the car. His hand rested casually on his belt, too close to his baton. "Got some reports of suspicious activity in the area." Across the street, Mrs. Patel from the laundromat had stopped sweeping her storefront. Mr. Ellis, walking his dog, slowed his pace. Phones began to appear in hands, recording what was unfolding. "I am just walking home from work," Layla explained, gesturing to her backpack. "It is only 3 blocks from here." Officer Caldwell circled behind her. "Lot of attitude there, young lady. Why do not you show us some ID? I am 16, sir. I have my school ID." Layla reached slowly for her backpack, making sure her movements were clear and visible. "Awful nice backpack for a grocery store worker," Whitaker commented, his tone sharpening. "Where did you get that?" "It was a birthday gift from my parents." Layla's fingers trembled slightly as she pulled out her wallet. More people had gathered on the sidewalk now, their presence both comforting and concerning. A second patrol car pulled up, its lights cutting through the growing darkness. Officer Thorpe emerged, his massive frame blocking the glow of a nearby streetlight. "Everything okay here, Sergeant?" Thorpe asked, though his eyes never left Layla. "Just having a chat with this one," Whitaker replied. "Seems she thinks the rules do not apply in her neighborhood." "I am following all the rules, sir," Layla said firmly, though her mouth had gone dry. "I have shown my ID, and I am simply trying to get home." "That mouth of yours is going to get you in trouble," Caldwell warned, stepping closer. The circle of officers tightened around her. Someone in the growing crowd called out, "Leave her alone. She is just a kid. Back up." Whitaker barked at the onlookers. "This is police business." Layla could feel the situation spiraling. The air crackled with tension as more phones recorded the scene. Mrs. Patel had moved closer, her broom clutched like a weapon. Mr. Ellis's dog growled low in its throat. "Am I being detained?" Layla asked, fighting to keep her voice from shaking. "Because if not, I would like to continue walking home." Whitaker's face darkened. "Oh, you would like that, would you?" His hand moved from his belt to grip his baton, hands against the wall. "Now what?" Layla stepped back, confused and frightened. "I have not done anything wrong." "Resisting," Caldwell announced with grim satisfaction. "Always resisting." The crowd's voices grew louder, angry protests, mixing with urgent warnings. Thorpe cracked his knuckles, a sound that seemed to echo in the growing darkness. Whitaker's baton made a soft clicking sound as he extended it, the metal catching the last rays of sunlight. Layla stood her ground, Though every instinct screamed at her to run, her phone was still recording, capturing every moment as the three officers closed in around her. Their faces, masks of authority, twisted into something uglier, something hungry for violence. "Please," she whispered, but not in fear, in warning. "Do not do this." The crowd surged forward, their shouts rising to a crescendo. Phones recorded from every angle as Whitaker raised his baton, his smile cold and certain in the gathering dusk. "Stop. Do not touch me." Layla's voice cut through the chaos as Whitaker's hands grabbed her shoulders. The crowd's angry shouts echoed off the storefronts, bouncing between the old brick buildings of Oak Street. "Stop resisting!" Caldwell barked, seizing her arm with bruising force. "I am not resisting. You are hurting me." Layla tried to maintain her balance as the officers pushed and pulled her from different directions. Her phone pressed against her hip in her hoodie pocket, still recording everything. Whitaker's face twisted with rage. On the ground now, he kicked the back of her knees, sending her crashing onto the concrete sidewalk. Pain shot through her palms as she tried to break her fall. "Please, I have not done anything." Layla curled instinctively as the first blow from the baton struck her back. The crowd surged forward, their horrified screams mixing with her own. "Stay back!" Thorpe roared, pulling out his taser and aiming it at the onlookers. "Anyone steps closer gets dropped." Another strike landed across Layla's shoulders. She tried to protect her head with her arms as kicks began landing against her ribs. The rough concrete scraped her cheek as they pushed her face down. "Stop. She is just a child." Mrs. Patel's voice cracked with desperation. She took a step forward, still clutching her broom. "Last warning." Caldwell pulled out his pepper spray, sweeping it in a threatening arc toward the crowd. People stumbled backward, phones still raised and recording. Blood from Layla's nose dripped onto the sidewalk. Each breath sent stabbing pain through her chest. "Help!" she screamed, tasting copper in her mouth. "Somebody help me!" Mr. Ellis, his silver hair gleaming under the streetlights, broke from the crowd. "This is murder. You are going to kill her." He shuffled forward with his cane raised. Thorpe spun around and shoved the elderly man hard. Mr. Ellis fell backward, his cane clattering across the concrete. His dog lunged forward, barking furiously until someone grabbed its leash. "Get back, old man, or you are next," Thorpe sneered, turning back to where Whitaker and Caldwell continued their assault on Layla. The beating seemed endless, each second stretched into an eternity of pain and terror. Layla could hear people crying in the crowd, prayers mixing with curses. Her phone dug into her hip as she twisted away from another kick, knowing it was still recording, still uploading everything to her cloud storage. "Thought you were smart, did not you?" Whitaker panted between strikes. "Thought you could disrespect the law." "Please," Layla gasped. "I cannot breathe." Another blow cut off her words. Caldwell grabbed her arms, wrenching them behind her back. The cold metal of handcuffs bit into her wrists, too tight, pinching her skin. "Not so mouthy now, are you?" Through swollen eyes, Layla saw more phones recording their lights, like stars in the darkness that had fallen over East Haven. She silently prayed the footage would make it out, would show the world what was happening. "Get her up," Whitaker commanded, grabbing a fistful of Layla's hair. They yanked her to her feet, ignoring her cry of pain as her shoulders screamed in protest. Mrs. Patel had helped Mr. Ellis up. The old man's face was streaked with tears as he leaned heavily on his cane. "We saw everything," he shouted. "The whole world will see what you did." "Clear a path," Thorpe ordered, shoving people aside as they dragged Layla toward the patrol car. Her legs barely worked, each step sending fresh waves of agony through her body. The crowd followed, their phones still recording. Someone was calling 911, demanding help. Others shouted that they had everything on video, that the officers could not hide what they had done. They reached the cruiser, its lights still flashing in the full darkness that had descended. Caldwell opened the back door while Whitaker and Thorpe held Layla up. "This is not over," someone yelled from the crowd. "We will not let you get away with this. Watch us." Whitaker smirked, roughly shoving Layla into the back seat. Her head hit the doorframe, adding another burst of pain to the symphony of hurt that was her body. The door slammed shut, muffling the crowd's voices. Through the window, Layla could see Mrs. Patel holding Mr. Ellis as he wept. Other faces pressed close, their phones still raised, still witnessing. The officers climbed in, laughing and congratulating each other. The engine roared to life, and the cruiser peeled away from the curb, leaving the shaken crowd behind in a cloud of exhaust. Layla slumped against the seat, tasting blood and tears. Her phone pressed against her leg, A small comfort in knowing it was still recording, still sending evidence of everything that had happened into the digital cloud where they could not reach it. The streetlights flashed by outside as they sped through the darkened streets of East Haven, taking her away from her community, but not from the truth they had all witnessed. The patrol car jerked to a stop in front of the East Haven police station, its headlights illuminating the brick facade. Layla's whole body ached, each breath sending sharp pains through her ribs. Her face felt swollen and tight, one eye nearly closed from the beating. "Welcome to your new home, Princess," Whitaker sneered, yanking open the back door. The fluorescent lights from the station entrance made her wince. Caldwell grabbed her arm, pulling her roughly from the car. Her legs buckled, but they did not let her fall. Instead, they half-dragged her up the concrete steps and through the heavy glass doors. The station's lobby was empty, except for a bored-looking desk sergeant who barely glanced up from his crossword puzzle. The linoleum floors squeaked under their boots as they marched her down a dingy hallway lined with wanted posters and outdated safety notices. "Processing room," Thorpe announced, shoving open a metal door. The small room stank of stale coffee and sweat. A single camera blinked in the corner, its red light steady and accusatory. They pushed Layla into a hard plastic chair. Her handcuffs rattled against the metal back. Blood from her split lip had dried on her chin, making her skin feel tight and itchy. "So, here is how this goes," Whitaker said, leaning against the wall. He started wiping his knuckles with a tissue, red stains spreading across the white paper. "You attacked 3 police officers during a routine stop. We were forced to defend ourselves. That is not what happened." Layla's voice came out but steady. Everyone saw. They were all recording. Caldwell laughed. A harsh, barking sound. "Funny thing about phone videos. They have a way of disappearing." He pulled out his own phone, tapping the screen. "Just like our body cam footage, seems to have gotten corrupted. Technical difficulties. You know how it is." "I want my phone call," Layla said, forcing herself to meet Whitaker's eyes, despite the fear churning in her stomach. "Phone call?" Thorpe mocked. "This is not TV, sweetheart. You are looking at serious charges. Assaulting an officer, resisting arrest, disturbing the peace." "I have the right to a phone call," Layla insisted, her heart pounding, but her voice remaining firm. "It is the law." Whitaker pushed off the wall, getting right in her face. His breath smelled like mint gum and cigarettes. "You want to talk about law? How about I add a few more charges? Maybe we found drugs in your pocket. Maybe you tried to grab my gun. I want my phone call," Layla repeated, fighting to keep her voice from shaking. Now, the officers exchanged looks. Caldwell shrugged. "Let her call her mommy. Maybe that will make her more cooperative." "Fine," Whitaker spat. He pulled Layla's phone from an evidence bag, holding it just out of reach. "One call. Make it quick." With her hands still cuffed behind her, Layla had to awkwardly turn as Whitaker held the phone to her ear. Her fingers found the familiar pattern to unlock it. Muscle memory taking over as she dialed her father's number. It rang twice before Damon Brooks's voice came through clear and strong. "Layla, where are you? It is past your curfew." "Daddy," she choked out, tears finally breaking through her careful control. "I am at the police station. They hurt me, Dad. Bad." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "What happened? Are you injured?" "3 officers stopped me walking home," Layla explained between sobs, trying to get the important details out quickly. "They beat me on Oak Street. There were witnesses. Everyone was recording. They are trying to say I attacked them. But Dad, I did not. I did not do anything wrong." "Which station?" Damon's voice had gone cold and hard, a tone Layla had never heard before. "East Haven." "Please hurry," she whispered. "I am scared." "Listen to me carefully, baby girl," Damon said, and Layla could hear movement in the background, papers rustling, doors opening. "I am handling this right now. You stay strong. Do not sign anything. Do not admit to anything. I am coming. Time's up." Whitaker grabbed the phone away, but not before Layla caught a glimpse of her father's face on the screen. His features twisted with a fury she had never seen before. "Daddy is going to fix everything," Caldwell mocked, making his voice high and childish. "Guess what, Princess? Daddy cannot help you now. You are in our world. You should have just kept your mouth shut and shown some respect," Thorpe added, cracking his knuckles menacingly. Layla sat up straighter, despite the pain. Despite her fear, she could still hear her father's words echoing in her head. "Stay strong. My father will be here soon," she said quietly. "Oh yeah." Whitaker leaned down again, his smile cruel. "And who is your daddy? The mayor? Superman?" Layla met his gaze steadily. She did not answer, just watched as he straightened up and walked to the door, still wiping dried blood from his hands. "Get comfortable," he called over his shoulder. "You are going to be here a while. Plenty of time to think about changing your story." The door slammed shut behind them, leaving Layla alone in the harsh fluorescent light. Her body throbbed with pain, but her mind was clear. Her father was coming. And unlike these officers, she knew exactly who Damon Brooks was and what the director of the FBI could do. Damon Brooks's office, in the J. Edgar Hoover building, erupted into action. His fingers flew across his phone, sending rapid-fire texts, while barking orders into his desk phone. "I want a full tactical team in East Haven within hours. Get me Judge Martinez on the line. We need emergency warrants. And someone find out who is running that precinct." His voice carried through the open door, bringing agents running. "Sir, we have got reports coming in from social media," Agent Rivera said, tablet in hand. "Multiple videos of the assault are spreading. The crowd size outside the station is growing." Damon's jaw clenched as he watched one of the videos. The sight of his daughter being thrown to the ground made his hands shake. "Get me everything on Officers Whitaker, Caldwell, and Thorpe. I want their complete records, complaints, disciplinary actions, everything." Outside the East Haven police station, the crowd had swelled to over 100 people. Mrs. Langston, the retired high school principal, stood at the front, her silver hair gleaming under the streetlights. "Free Layla Brooks," the crowd chanted. "Justice now." Inside the station, Sergeant Whitaker paced nervously. "Something is not right. That girl is too calm. Probably just some community college professor's kid," Caldwell said. But his voice wavered, acting all high and mighty. The station's front doors burst open. A team of FBI agents in tactical gear streamed in, led by Assistant Director Rivera. "This is a federal intervention. Everyone stay where you are." The desk sergeant jumped to his feet, coffee spilling across his crossword puzzle. "What the hell?" "By order of the Justice Department, this station is temporarily under federal jurisdiction," Rivera announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Officers Whitaker, Caldwell, and Thorpe are to surrender their badges and weapons immediately." Whitaker's face went pale. "On what grounds?" "Civil rights violations, excessive force, falsifying evidence," Rivera read from a tablet. "And that is just for starters. Federal marshals moved through the station, securing exits and gathering evidence." In the processing room, Agent Rivera gently helped Layla to her feet, removing the handcuffs. "You are safe now," she said softly, wrapping a blanket around Layla's shoulders. "We are getting you medical attention." News vans began arriving. Reporters thrust microphones toward the station entrance, cameras rolling as the three officers were escorted out in handcuffs. "This is Sarah Chen with Channel 7 News, live outside East Haven Police Station, where a dramatic federal raid has just taken place. A black SUV pulled up, and Damon Brooks stepped out. The crowd parted as he rushed up the steps, his face tight with concern. "Daddy." Layla's cry carried across the lobby. She ran to him, ignoring her injuries, and he caught her in a fierce embrace. "I am here, baby girl," he whispered, holding her carefully. "I am here now." The medical team insisted on taking Layla to the hospital. Damon rode with her, holding her hand as doctors documented her injuries. 3 bruised ribs, a concussion, multiple contusions. They were home. The Brooks house buzzed with activity as federal protection teams set up security perimeters. Inside, Layla's mother, Vivian, had not stopped crying since seeing her daughter's injuries. "We should have moved years ago," Vivian said, setting plates on the dinner table. Her hands trembled. "This town, we are not running," Damon said firmly. "We are going to fix this the right way." They sat down to a quiet dinner, the first moment of peace since the nightmare began. Layla picked at her food, wincing as she shifted in her chair. "The officers are suspended," Damon assured her. "We have got round-the-clock protection. Nobody is going to hurt you again." "I keep seeing their faces," Layla admitted quietly. When they, Vivian reached across the table, squeezing her daughter's hand. "You are safe now, baby." Damon's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stepped into the kitchen to answer it. "Director Brooks," a distorted voice said. "Quite a show today." Through the window, Damon noticed an unmarked police cruiser rolling past the house. Then another. "Who is this?" "Just a concerned citizen," the voice continued. "Things work differently here in East Haven. Always have. You would be smart to remember that. Is that a threat?" Damon's voice was ice cold. "Let us call it friendly advice. Drop this now. Take your daughter home to D.C., or we will bury you both so deep, even the FBI will not find you." The line went dead. Damon stood in the dark kitchen, watching more unmarked cars circle the block like sharks. His daughter's laughter drifted in from the dining room, fragile but healing. He gripped the phone tightly, his decision already made. They were not going anywhere. East Haven had no idea what kind of fight they had just started. Layla woke to the sound of helicopters. The sun barely filtered through her bedroom window, blocked by something outside. She pushed aside her curtains and froze. Armed state troopers lined their street, dressed in riot gear. Military-style vehicles blocked both ends of the road. A helicopter circled overhead, its spotlight sweeping across houses in the pre-dawn gloom. "Dad?" she called out, her voice cracking. "Mom?" Damon burst into her room, still in his pajamas. His face hardened as he took in the scene. "Vivian, turn on the TV," he shouted down the hall. The living room television blared to life. Mayor Clifford Lang's smooth face filled the screen, standing at a podium outside City Hall. "Due to ongoing civil unrest and threats to public safety, I am declaring a state of emergency in East Haven," Lang announced. "For the protection of all citizens, the state police will temporarily assume control of law enforcement duties. A mandatory curfew will be in effect from evening to morning." Vivian's hands flew to her mouth. "They cannot do this." Damon's phone buzzed. He answered, pacing the living room. "What do you mean?" "Stand down," he growled into the device. "I have jurisdiction here." "No, sir. You do not understand." A sharp knock at the front door made them all jump. 2 state troopers stood on the porch, their faces stern behind mirrored sunglasses. "Director Brooks," the first one said, "by order of the governor, we are here to establish a protective detail for your family." "We do not need protection," Damon replied coldly. "It is not optional, sir." The trooper handed him a document. "For your safety, all communications will be monitored. Please limit unnecessary travel." Layla's phone chirped. The screen displayed no service before going dark. The home's Wi-Fi connection disappeared seconds later. "This is for your own good," the second trooper said, his hand resting on his holster. "There are dangerous elements in this community." Vivian turned the TV volume up as breaking news flashed across the screen. The 3 officers who had beaten Layla stood outside the police union building, newly released. Sergeant Whitaker stepped to the microphones, his uniform crisp and clean. "What happened that night was tragic," Whitaker said, his voice thick with fake emotion. "But the public does not have the full story. We were attacked while performing our duties." The screen split to show grainy footage. Layla watched in horror as a doctored video played, showing her throwing the first punch. The angles carefully chosen to hide the officer's brutality. "That is a lie," she screamed at the TV. "That is not what happened." Her trembling fingers opened her cloud storage account. The real video should be there, automatically uploaded during the attack. But when she clicked the file, her heart stopped. The thumbnail showed the same doctored footage being broadcast on TV. No, no, no. She scrolled frantically through her files. Everything from that night was gone, replaced with the fake version. "Dad, they hacked my account. They changed the video." Damon was still on his phone, his voice rising. "Listen to me, Deputy Director. This is a cover-up." "What do you mean, political considerations?" "My daughter was assaulted." A text message popped up on his screen from an unknown number. "Back off, Brooks. Some battles are not worth fighting." Outside, more state police vehicles arrived. Officers set up checkpoints at every intersection, checking IDs of anyone trying to enter the neighborhood. Mrs. Langston attempted to bring them groceries, but was turned away. "This is still America," the elderly woman shouted as they forced her to leave. "You cannot cage people in their own homes." Layla's social media filled with conflicting messages. Some friends posted support. Others shared the doctored video with angry comments about police haters and troublemakers. News channels debated the footage, questioning her character, digging into her family's past. "Mom," Layla called out, hearing sobs from her parents' bedroom. She found Vivian curled up on the bed, shoulders shaking. "I cannot watch them destroy you," Vivian whispered. "First the beating, now these lies." Damon's phone rang again. This time it was Agent Rivera, her voice urgent. "Director, something is wrong. Our evidence is disappearing. Files are being corrupted. Witnesses are recanting. Someone is blocking us from inside the bureau." Through the window, Layla watched another state police cruiser roll past, moving slowly, deliberately. The officer inside stared directly at her, his face hidden behind dark glasses. She clutched her useless phone, the blank screen reflecting her bruised face. The true battle was not just about one night of violence anymore. This was about power, about who controlled the truth itself. And right now, the truth was being erased, rewritten, twisted into a weapon against her. A camera flash from across the street caught her eye. Someone was photographing their house. The state troopers did nothing to stop them. They were not there to protect the Brooks family. They were there to watch them, to contain them, to make sure they could not fight back. Layla sat on the living room couch, watching the first rays of sunlight creep across the carpet. She had not slept all night. Neither had her father. Damon stood by the window, his FBI phone disconnected on the coffee table, staring at the state troopers who had maintained their position throughout the dark hours. "They are changing shifts," he muttered, noting the fresh officers arriving in crisp uniforms. "They have got this planned down to the minute." Layla's body ached from the beating, but the emotional pain cut deeper. Why are not more people speaking up? There were witnesses everywhere. Damon turned from the window, his face etched with worry. "Because they are scared, baby, and with good reason." As if to confirm his words, Layla's burner phone, secretly passed to her by Mrs. Langston's grandson, buzzed with messages from the community group chat. "They broke all the windows at First Baptist last night," she read aloud, her voice trembling. "Spray-painted liars across the front steps." Damon clenched his fists. "Reverend Hayes's church. He was there when they—" He could not finish the sentence. Could not say, "when they beat you." More messages poured in. The Williams family, who had shared their video of the assault, found their car tires slashed. Old Mr. Turner, who tried to help Layla that night, was arrested for an unpaid parking ticket from years ago. Mrs. Ellis's daycare center was suddenly facing surprise health inspections. A soft tap at the back door made them both jump. Amara stood there, eyes wide with fear, glancing over her shoulder. Damon quickly let her in through the kitchen. "I had to crawl through 3 backyards to get here," Amara whispered, hugging Layla tight. "They are watching my house, too." Layla felt her friend trembling. "What happened?" Tears welled in Amara's eyes. "2 officers came to my dad's shop yesterday, said they found some irregularities in his business permits. Then they mentioned my little brother's school records. How sad it would be if he lost his scholarship." She wiped her eyes roughly. "They said, I need to stop hanging out with troublemakers if I want my family to stay safe." Damon's phone rang, one of the few lines still working. He answered on speaker. "Brooks. Damon. It is Terrence in the Civil Rights Division." The voice sounded strained. "Listen, all our subpoenas for the body cam footage were just denied. Judge Whitmore claims national security concerns." "That is impossible," Damon snapped. "What national security?" "They are saying the protests could attract terrorist elements. It is nonsense, but it is working. Half my team just got reassigned to field offices across the country. Someone is pulling strings way above my pay grade." After the call, Damon tried reaching out to his media contacts. Each time he got the same response. Stories were being killed by editors. Evidence was vanishing. Sources were going silent. Around the day, Mrs. Langston managed to get a message through via her grandson's video game chat. "Prayer meeting. Tonight, back room of Carter's barbershop. Come separate. Watch for tails." "I am going," Layla declared before her father could object. "It is too dangerous," Damon started. But Vivian cut him off. "She needs to be there," her mother said firmly. "Our people need to see her standing strong." They spent hours planning the route, timing the police patrols. As dusk approached, Layla slipped out through the neighbor's cellar, while Damon created a distraction by loudly arguing with the troopers about his constitutional rights. Carter's barbershop was dark, but the back room glowed with candlelight. 20 community leaders sat in a tight circle. Church elders, teachers, small business owners. Mrs. Langston stood as Layla entered, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "Child, we are so proud of you," the pastor whispered. "Do not you let them break your spirit." They shared updates in hushed voices. The intimidation was spreading. Phone lines cut, internet disrupted, strange cars following children home from school. But there was strength in their unity, in the shared determination in their eyes. Mrs. Langston led them in prayer, her rich voice steady and defiant. "Lord, we have seen this darkness before. We survived night riders and fire hoses. We will survive this too." Layla made it home just before curfew. The house was quiet except for the hum of the police radios outside. Then a shout pierced the night. "Fire!" They rushed to the front windows. In their yard, illuminating the darkness with hellish light, stood a burning cross. The flames reached toward the sky, casting twisted shadows across the manicured lawn that had once felt so safe. But they were not alone. Even as Damon called 911, knowing the police would not come, neighbors emerged from their homes. Old Mr. Turner, fresh out of jail, brought his garden hose. The Ellis sisters arrived with buckets. Mrs. Langston appeared like a warrior angel, wielding a fire extinguisher in each hand. Together they fought the flames, while the state troopers watched impassively from their posts. When the last ember died, they stood in a circle around the scorched earth, choking on smoke, but unbowed. "Let them come," Mrs. Langston declared, her voice carrying in the darkness. "Every cross they burn just lights up their shame for the world to see." Layla looked at the faces around her, illuminated by the streetlights. Neighbors, friends, family, all risking everything just by standing there. The fear was real, but so was their courage. So was their love. The state troopers' radios crackled with reports of suspicious gatherings, but nobody moved. They held their ground in the smoky dark, a quiet act of defiance under the watching stars. The morning sun revealed the full extent of the vandalism at First Baptist Church. Layla stood before the spray-painted walls, her hands shaking with anger. "Liars!" screamed at her in red paint, dripping like blood down the white siding. Shattered glass from the stained windows crunched under her feet. Mrs. Langston emerged from the church doors, her shoulders straight, despite the exhaustion in her eyes. She carried a broom in one hand and a bucket in the other. "They think this will silence us," she said, setting down her cleaning supplies. "But every broken window just lets God's light shine through in a new way." Layla helped the older woman sweep glass into neat piles. "I cannot believe they are getting away with this." "For now," Mrs. Langston corrected. She paused her sweeping and looked down the street. "We have company." A tall white man in civilian clothes approached cautiously, hands visible at his sides. Layla recognized him as one of the younger officers from the station, though he was not wearing his uniform today. "Officer Kane," Mrs. Langston said coolly. "Just Kane now," he replied, his voice tight. "They suspended me this morning, said I was undermining department morale by asking too many questions about what happened to Layla." Mrs. Langston studied him for a long moment. "Come help us sweep, Kane. We can talk while we work." As they cleaned together, Kane shared what he knew. Chief Donnelly has been covering up incidents like this for years, but he is careful. Keeps the real evidence off the police servers. "I tried accessing the body cam footage from that night, but it is already gone." A familiar voice called out from behind them. "That is because it is on his private server." They turned to see Amara standing there, wringing her hands nervously. Layla felt a mix of joy and worry, seeing her friend out in the open like this. "What do you mean?" Kane asked. Amara glanced around before continuing. "Last summer, I was doing volunteer work at the station. Heard the chief talking about his insurance policy, a server at his house, where he keeps sensitive stuff. Said it was the only way to make sure nobody could hack in through the department's network." Mrs. Langston's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "The mansion on Hill Street, with all those security cameras." Kane nodded. "He has got a state-of-the-art system, guards posted around the clock. But I know the rotation schedule, and there is a blind spot in the coverage near the backwoods. They gathered in the church office, away from prying eyes. Using paper and pencil to avoid any electronic surveillance, they sketched out the mansion's layout based on Kane's knowledge. Amara's computer skills could help them access the server if they could get inside. "It is dangerous," Mrs. Langston warned. "If you are caught, we are already in danger," Layla replied. "At least this way, we are fighting back." They spent hours planning every detail. Kane knew which guards could be trusted and which were firmly in Donnelly's pocket. Amara mapped out the likely location of the server room based on the house's electrical setup. Mrs. Langston would coordinate from her house nearby, ready to create a distraction if needed. Around the day, Layla slipped home to prepare. She found her father in his study, surrounded by files and dead-end phone numbers. "Daddy," she said softly, "I need your help with something, but you cannot ask too many questions." Damon looked at her for a long moment. Then he opened his desk drawer and pulled out a small recording device. "Wear this," he said, showing her how to activate it. "Whatever you are planning, and I do not want to know. At least there will be evidence if anything goes wrong." The device was smaller than a button, easily hidden in her jacket seam. "How did you get this past them?" she asked, knowing their house was being watched. "I have friends too," he said simply. "Old friends who remember what it was like before, who know how to move things quietly." He hugged her tight. "Be careful, baby. Be smart." As sunset approached, Layla made her way through backyards and side streets to the meeting point. The others were already there, crouched in the shadows of the trees behind Chief Donnelly's property. The mansion loomed ahead, its windows glowing with warm light that felt like a mockery of comfort. Kane did one final check of their equipment: dark clothes, gloves, small flashlights. Amara's laptop in a silent mode that would not trigger any electronic sensors. Mrs. Langston pressed something into Layla's hand, a small cross on a chain. "For protection," she whispered, "and to remember who you are really fighting for." They watched the guard rotation Kane had predicted right on schedule. The security lights swept across the manicured lawn in steady patterns. In the growing darkness, Layla could make out the small garden shed that would provide their first cover. And beyond it, the back door that Kane swore would be accessible. Amara's hands trembled as she double-checked her computer setup. "I have never done anything like this before," she whispered. "None of us have," Layla replied, squeezing her friend's shoulder. "But we are doing it together." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deep purples and blues. Soon it would be dark enough to move. They huddled close in the warm evening air, each lost in their own thoughts and fears, waiting for full darkness to provide their cover. Mrs. Langston's voice cut through the tension, barely a whisper. "Remember, you are not alone. The whole community is with you in spirit, even if they cannot be here in person." The light faded minute by minute, and the weight of what they were about to attempt settled over them like a heavy blanket. But there was no turning back now. The truth they needed was inside that house, and they were going to find it. Darkness settled over the woods behind Chief Donnelly's mansion like a heavy curtain. Layla's heart pounded as she crawled through thick underbrush, following Kane's silent hand signals. The massive house loomed ahead, its windows glowing with warm yellow light that seemed to mock their mission. Mrs. Langston moved with surprising stealth for her age, staying low and steady. Amara clutched her laptop bag close, her breathing quick and shallow. They paused at the tree line, watching the security lights sweep across the manicured lawn in predictable patterns. "Wait for my signal," Kane whispered, checking his watch. "Guard change in minutes." Layla touched the small recording device, hidden in her jacket seam, drawing comfort from its presence. The cross misses. Langston had given her felt warm against her skin. She studied the house's layout. 3 stories of brick and arrogance, with a partially sunken basement level, visible from their position. Kane raised his hand as 2 guards walked past, their footsteps crunching on gravel. The moment they rounded the corner, he waved the group forward. They sprinted in pairs across the open ground, diving behind a row of carefully trimmed hedges. The motion sensors Kane had warned about created invisible lines across the property. He guided them through the safe zones, moving in short bursts between patches of shadow. Sweat trickled down Layla's back despite the cool evening air. They reached the basement window Kane had identified. He produced a small tool and worked at the lock while the others kept watch. The window creaked open with agonizing slowness. "Mrs. Langston." "You are sure about staying outside?" Layla whispered. The older woman nodded. "I will be more useful as lookout. Plus, these old knees are not made for climbing through windows anymore." She squeezed Layla's hand. "Be careful, child." One by one, they slipped through the window into a musty storage room. Their flashlights revealed shelves of old files and boxes. Kane led them down a narrow hallway, past a laundry room, and what looked like a wine cellar. "Server room should be through here," he murmured, stopping at a heavy door with an electronic keypad. Amara. Amara pulled out her laptop and a small device she had built. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, bypassing the security system. The lock clicked open with a soft beep. Inside, rows of humming servers cast a pale blue glow. File cabinets lined the walls, and a desk held multiple monitors. The air felt thick with artificial cold from the cooling systems. "Start with the most recent files," Kane suggested, standing guard by the door. The footage would have been uploaded that night. Layla and Amara began searching, their flashlights dancing across labels and folders. The filing system was meticulous. Dates, times, and locations carefully noted. But something felt off. Amara's movements seemed increasingly jerky and uncertain. "I am going to check the hallway," Amara whispered suddenly, her voice strained. "Make sure we are still clear." Before Layla could respond, Amara slipped out. Kane frowned, but stayed focused on the search. Layla pulled open another drawer, finding a folder marked with the date. A distant door slammed. Alarm bells shattered the silence, their shriek deafening in the confined space. Red emergency lights began flashing, turning the room into a crimson nightmare. "Run!" Kane shouted, drawing his concealed weapon. "It is a trap." Heavy footsteps thundered down the stairs. Chief Donnelly burst through the door, flanked by 2 officers with guns drawn, his face twisted into a cruel smile. Well, breaking and entering, Officer Kane. That is a serious offense." "This ends tonight, Donnelly," Kane growled, positioning himself between Layla and the chief. "No," Donnelly replied calmly. "It ends exactly how I planned." A shot cracked through the air. Kane cried out, crumpling as blood spread across his thigh. Layla screamed, backing away as the officers advanced. "The bathroom!" Kane gasped through clenched teeth. "Go!" Layla bolted for the small half-bath they had passed earlier. Bullets pinged off metal cabinets behind her. She slammed the door shut, scrambling onto the toilet to reach the narrow window above. Glass shattered as she kicked through it. She wiggled through the opening, feeling sharp edges tear at her clothes. The ground rushed up to meet her as she tumbled out. Shouts and flashlight beams cut through the darkness. Dogs barked in the distance. Layla ran, branches whipping her face as she plunged into the woods. Her lungs burned with each breath, but she did not dare slow down. The sound of pursuit grew closer. Searchlights swept through the trees, casting strange shadows that seemed to reach for her. She stumbled over roots and fallen branches, fighting back panic. A massive fallen oak appeared ahead. Layla dove beneath it, pressing herself into the hollow space between trunk and earth. Dead leaves and spider webs clung to her hair and skin, but she did not move. Boots crashed through the underbrush nearby. The beams of powerful flashlights probed the darkness. Layla held her breath, tears streaming silently down her face as she thought of Kane bleeding on the floor, of Amara's betrayal, of everything that had gone so horribly wrong. With trembling fingers, she pulled out her phone. The screen's glow felt dangerously bright, but she had to let her father know. She typed a single word and hit send. Betrayed. Then she curled into herself, making her body as small as possible, and waited as the searchlights continued their relentless sweep through the dark forest. The sun painted the sky in shades of gray as Layla stumbled down her street. Her clothes were caked with mud, leaves tangled in her hair. Every step sent pain shooting through her twisted ankle. She had spent the night moving from hiding spot to hiding spot, always staying ahead of the searching officers and their dogs. The front door burst open before she reached it. Damon rushed out, gathering her into his arms. "Thank God," he whispered hoarsely. His eyes were red from a sleepless night. "I have been going crazy." Inside, Layla's mother wrapped her in a blanket, brushing debris from her daughter's hair with shaking hands. The morning news played quietly on the TV, its cheerful tone a stark contrast to their grim faces. "Kane?" Layla asked, her voice cracking. Damon's jaw tightened. "Alive, they have him under guard at County General. The official story is, he was shot resisting arrest during a break-in." He paused. "Amara's house is empty. The whole family vanished overnight." Layla closed her eyes, the betrayal still raw. She was scared for her family. They threatened her. "I know, baby." Her mother's voice was gentle, but that does not make it hurt any less. The TV's volume suddenly increased. "Breaking news in the East Haven police corruption scandal," the anchor announced. "FBI Director Damon Brooks has been suspended pending investigation into allegations of bribery and witness tampering. Sources claim Brooks attempted to pay off local officials to drop charges against his daughter." Damon's phone buzzed. His face darkened as he read the message. "They are suspending me effective immediately." "But that is ridiculous," Layla's mother protested. "They cannot just... They can." And they did. Damon's voice was tired. "This goes higher than we thought. Someone is pulling strings at the federal level." The news continued, showing Layla's yearbook photo. Police are seeking 16-year-old Layla Brooks, now identified as a member of a local gang. The teen is considered dangerous and may be armed. A gang member? Layla's laugh was bitter. "I have never even gotten detention." "They are painting you as a threat," Damon explained, making sure no one questions whatever they do next. A commotion outside drew them to the window. Police cars blocked both ends of the street. Officers in tactical gear approached houses, pounding on doors. "House-to-house search," Damon muttered. "We need to go now." They grabbed pre-packed bags. Damon had prepared for this possibility. The back door opened onto an overgrown alley. They slipped out just as heavy knocking rattled their front door. The morning was fully bright now as they hurried through back streets and unused paths. Damon led them to Mrs. Langston's church, one of their planned safe locations. But smoke rose from the church's location. As they got closer, Layla's heart sank. The beautiful old building was a blackened shell. Windows shattered, walls scorched. The smell of gasoline and burnt wood filled the air. Mrs. Langston stood in the parking lot, surrounded by church members. Her face was streaked with soot, but her back was straight as she directed people to salvage what they could. "Firebombs," she said when she saw them. "Around the early hours, thank the Lord no one was inside." She hugged Layla fiercely. "I have been praying for you all night, child." "We need somewhere to lay low," Damon said quietly. Mrs. Langston nodded. "I know just the place. Sister Etta's old house. It has been empty since she passed, but we have kept it ready." Underground Railroad days taught us to always have a safe house. They followed her through a maze of side streets to a small weathered house set back from the road. Inside, other families from the church had already gathered. Children slept on blankets, while adults spoke in hushed voices. "It is not much, Mrs." Langston apologized, showing them to a back room. "But it is better than being out there right now." Layla sank onto a worn couch, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Through the window, she could still see smoke rising from the church. Damon paced, making quiet calls to contacts who might still be loyal. As evening approached, Mrs. Langston suggested they return to pray in the church ruins. "Show them they cannot break our spirit," she insisted. They walked carefully through the damaged sanctuary, glass crunching under their feet. The setting sun streamed through broken windows, casting long shadows across the debris-strewn floor. Mrs. Langston knelt in front of the charred altar, her voice strong despite her tears. "Lord, give us strength for this battle. Protect these children of yours. Let justice prevail." Layla knelt beside her, clasping the older woman's weathered hand. Outside, police sirens wailed in the distance. New checkpoints were being set up. The town was becoming a prison, tightening around them like a noose. But in the ruins of her beloved church, Mrs. Langston continued to pray, her faith unshaken. And despite everything, the betrayal, the lies, the destruction, Layla found herself joining in, drawing strength from the old woman's unwavering spirit. Through the broken windows, they could see police lights flashing, casting red and blue shadows across the scorched walls. The enemy's grip on East Haven was tightening. But here, in this sacred space, they found a moment of peace to gather their courage. For whatever came next, the sun filtered through the safe house's dusty windows. Layla sat at the kitchen table, picking at a piece of dry toast. Her mother dozed fitfully on the couch, while Damon studied a map of the town, marking police checkpoints with red X's. Mrs. Langston burst through the back door, her eyes bright with purpose. "Child, I think I found something." She pulled up a chair next to Layla, lowering her voice. "Remember Terrence from my activist days in the 80s? Layla shook her head, but Damon looked up. "Terrence Johnson, the computer whiz who helped expose that corrupt judge. The very same." Mrs. Langston smiled. "He is retired now, but he never lost his touch with technology. I got through to him last night on a secure line. He thinks he might be able to recover your footage from the cloud backup." Hope flickered in Layla's chest, but they deleted it. "They hacked my account. Honey, nothing on the internet is ever truly gone." Mrs. Langston patted her hand. "Terrence says there are always traces, especially with automatic backups. He just needs a few hours with a secure connection." Damon joined them at the table. "That is risky. They are monitoring all communications, which is why we need to set up our own network." Mrs. Langston pulled out a worn notebook. "Sister Etta's grandson left some equipment here. Routers, cables, the works." He was studying computer science before she trailed off, then squared her shoulders. "Well, we can put it to good use now." They spent the next hour transforming the safe house's basement into a makeshift command center. Old card tables held borrowed laptops. Extension cords snaked across the floor. Elder Carver, a retired electrician, worked on stabilizing the power supply while his wife kept watch upstairs. Like old times, Mrs. Langston mused, helping Damon arrange signal boosters. Except back then, we just needed a mimeograph and some good running shoes. A soft knock at the basement door made everyone freeze. Mrs. Langston gripped her cane tightly as Damon eased the door open. Amara stood there, pale and trembling. Her eyes were red from crying. "Please," she whispered, "I need to talk to Layla." Layla's heart clenched. The memory of that night at the police chief's mansion was still fresh. The alarms, Kane's blood on the floor, running for her life, while searchlights swept the woods. "You have got some nerve," Damon growled, but Mrs. Langston held up her hand. "Let her speak." Amara stepped into the basement, wringing her hands. "They threatened my little brother," she said, her voice breaking. "Said they would plant drugs in his locker, get him expelled, ruin his whole future. I was so scared." She looked at Layla pleadingly. "But what I did, I cannot live with it. Kane got shot because of me. I want to make it right." "How?" Layla's voice was hard. How can you possibly make this right? I know things. Amara wiped her eyes. About the police chief's network, about where they keep their real records, and she pulled out a small flash drive. I copied some files before we went in that night. I was going to give them to them, but I could not. I just could not. Damon took the drive, examining it carefully. This could be a trap. It is not, Amara insisted. Test it, check it, whatever you need to do. Just please let me help fix what I broke. Mrs. Langston studied the girl's face for a long moment. Fear makes people do terrible things, she said finally, but courage means facing those mistakes and trying to make amends. She turned to Layla. What do you say, child? Layla looked at her former best friend, the girl who had shared her secrets, her dreams, her fears. The girl who had betrayed her, but also the girl who had come back, risking everything to try to make it right. Okay, Layla said quietly. You can help, but no more secrets. No more lies. Amara nodded tearfully. I promise. They spent the afternoon setting up secure connections, using Amara's knowledge of the police department systems to avoid detection. Elder Carver installed signal scramblers, while his wife kept the children upstairs, occupied with quiet games and stories. As evening approached, Mrs. Langston's phone buzzed, a special tone she had set for Terrence. Everyone gathered around as she put it on speaker. Got it, Terrence's gravelly voice announced. The original footage, clear as day. Those idiots did not know about tertiary backups. I have got the whole thing from the first punch to the last kick. Layla sagged with relief, her mother hugging her tight. Damon's eyes gleamed with renewed purpose. Now what? Amara asked. Mrs. Langston smiled grimly. Now we plan. Mayor is holding that big town hall tomorrow, broadcasting live across the country, all about healing our community and such nonsense. She squeezed Layla's shoulder. Seems like the perfect time to show everyone what really happened. They gathered around one of the laptops, watching a test file Terrence sent. There it was, the truth in stark, undeniable detail. Every blow, every lie, every moment of brutality, captured and preserved. We will need to be careful, Damon warned. Security will be tight. Good thing I know every back entrance to that building, Mrs. Langston said. Used to clean it during college. Some things you never forget. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Through the basement's small window, they could see police lights sweeping the darkening streets. But down here, surrounded by allies, both old and newly redeemed, Layla felt something she had not in days. Real hope. The sun painted the safe house kitchen in soft pink light. Layla stood at the window, watching the sun creep over East Haven's rooftops. Behind her, Mrs. Langston made coffee, while Damon cleaned his old service weapon. Just in case, he had said. Amara sat at the table, memorizing the building layout one last time. You sure about this? Damon asked, not looking up from his work. Once we start, there is no turning back. Layla touched the flash drive hanging from her neck. I have never been more sure of anything. Mrs. Langston handed her a mug of coffee, extra sweet the way she liked it. Drink up, child. Going to be a long morning. Kane hobbled in on crutches, his leg heavily bandaged. Dark circles ringed his eyes, but his voice was steady. The police scanners quiet. Too quiet. They are waiting, Damon said, just like us. Amara spread out the town hall blueprints again. Okay, so the control room is here. She pointed to a small room off the main stage. 2 guards usually, but during events, they are more focused on the crowd than backstage. That is where we will patch in, Layla said. She had practiced the sequence 100 times. Connect the drive, override the feed, broadcast the truth. Simple, if everything went right. Deadly, if it did not. Damon's phone buzzed. He stepped into the hallway to take the call, speaking in low tones. When he returned, his face was grim, but determined. Just got word from Judge Thompson at DOJ. She has got a team standing by, but they need evidence of civil rights violations before they can move. This video has to get out. It will, Layla said firmly. Kane shifted on his crutches. I know I am not much use like this, but I am coming. I know how those officers think, how they will react. You might need that. Mrs. Langston nodded. We will need every hand we can get, even broken ones. They spent the next hour going over the plan again. Elder Carver would create a distraction at the front entrance, while Mrs. Langston led a group of protesters, giving Layla and Amara cover to slip in through the service door. Damon would monitor police movements from outside, coordinating with their allies through burner phones. Remember, Damon told Layla, checking her wire for the 3rd time, if anything goes wrong, you get out. No heroics. The footage will not help anyone. if you are not around to testify about it. I know, Dad. She hugged him tight, breathing in his familiar cologne. But I will not run. Not this time. Mrs. Langston gathered them in a circle, hands joined. Even Kane managed to balance on one leg to join them. Lord, she prayed, her voice strong and clear, protect these warriors for justice. Guide their steps, steady their hands, and let truth shine bright as morning. Amen, they whispered together. The sun climbed higher as they gathered their supplies. Burner phones, first aid kits, Mrs. Langston's protest signs, Kane's badge, which he might need to bluff their way past security. Amara's laptop, loaded with Terrence's backup programs. Damon helped Kane into the back of Elder Carver's van, while Layla and Amara double-checked their equipment one last time. The flash drive felt heavy against Layla's chest, weighted with purpose. I am sorry, Amara said suddenly, her voice small for everything. Layla looked at her old friend. Really? Looked at her. The fear was still there, but something else too, something stronger. I know, Layla said. Now, let us make it right. They drove separately, taking different routes to avoid attention. Through the van's windows, Layla watched her town. Streets eerily empty. Police cruisers parked at every major intersection. State trooper checkpoints, stopping random cars. The town hall loomed ahead, its stone steps already crowded with people. News vans lined the street, reporters doing live stand-ups about community healing and moving forward. Armed officers stood at every entrance, checking IDs and bags. Ready? Mrs. Langston asked as they parked a block away. Layla touched the flash drive again, thinking of every blow, every lie, every moment of injustice that had led to this morning. She thought of Kane's blood on the mansion floor, of her mother's tears, of Mrs. Langston's firebombed church. Ready, she said. They split up, merging with the growing crowd. Layla and Amara stayed close together, two teenagers in church clothes, nothing suspicious about them at all. Kane limped along behind, his crutches marking a steady rhythm on the pavement. Damon's voice crackled through their earpieces. Security is heavy on the west side. Stay east. Mrs. Langston's group began chanting, right on schedule. No justice, no peace. Signs rose in the air. Cameras swiveled to capture the protest. Layla and Amara slipped through the crowd, moving steadily toward the service entrance. Kane followed, his badge visible just in case. The morning sun blazed overhead, promising another hot day in East Haven. Inside the building, their footsteps echoed on marble floors. The main hall buzzed with voices as people found their seats. Through a crack in the stage curtain, Layla could see the mayor at the podium testing his microphone. Her heart pounded, but her hands were steady. The truth was coming. Ready or not, the mayor's voice boomed through the packed auditorium. Today, we come together as one community to heal our divisions. Layla and Amara pressed against the back wall, inching toward the AV booth. The crowd shifted restlessly in their seats, a mix of concerned citizens and uniformed officers. Captain Mercer stood near the stage, arms crossed, scanning faces like a predator. Keep moving, Kane whispered through their earpieces. Chief Donnelly is getting ready to speak. Mayor Lang droned on about unity and respect for law enforcement. Layla's fingers traced the flash drive beneath her blouse. They were almost to the booth when she spotted Mrs. Langston in the third row, surrounded by church elders. The old woman gave an almost imperceptible nod. And now the mayor said, I would like to introduce someone who has been working tirelessly to maintain peace and order. Our distinguished chief of police, Vernon Donnelly. Applause scattered through the room as Donnelly took the podium, his silver hair catching the stage lights. Layla's bruises seemed to throb at the sight of him. Just 3 more steps, Amara breathed. The AV booth door was propped open slightly. Inside, 2 technicians focused on their monitors. One reached for his coffee, giving Layla and Amara their opening. They slipped in behind him. Excuse me, you cannot? The tech started. Amara flashed Kane's badge. Police business. Step aside. Layla's hands flew over the equipment, connecting the drive just as they had practiced. Her heart hammered so loud she could barely hear Donnelly talking about proper procedures and respecting authority. Almost there, she whispered. The first tech reached for his radio. Amara grabbed his wrist. I would not. On stage, Donnelly was building to his big moment. And I want to address the unfortunate incident that has divided our town. Layla hit enter. The giant screens behind Donnelly flickered, his voice cut out. And suddenly there it was, crystal clear footage of that night, officers surrounding her. The first brutal swing of the baton. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone screamed. On screen, Officer Whitaker's face twisted with rage, as he kicked her ribs. The sound of impact echoed through the speakers. Blood sprayed across the pavement. "Shut it off!" Donnelly roared, but his microphone was dead. The footage kept playing. Every blow, every threat, every moment of pure, undeniable truth. "That is enough," Captain Mercer bellowed. He pointed at Layla. "Arrest her now." Officers surged toward the booth, but Mrs. Langston was faster. She swung her heavy wooden cane like a baseball bat, catching the first officer in the knees. He went down hard. "Not this time," she shouted. The room erupted. Elders grabbed folding chairs, forming a barrier between the police and the booth. Kane appeared from nowhere, tackling an officer despite his injured leg. People stood on their seats, phones recording everything. Chief Donnelly himself vaulted off the stage. Surprisingly agile for his age, he charged through the chaos, face purple with fury. His hand closed around Layla's arm like a steel trap. You little Layla drove her knee up, just like her father had taught her. Donnelly doubled over, but did not let go. They struggled, crashing into the soundboard. Blood trickled from his split lip. "Let her go!" Amira screamed. She pulled out a small canister and sprayed directly into Donnelly's face. The chief released Layla, howling and clawing at his eyes. Pepper spray filled the air. All around them, the battle raged. Mrs. Langston's cane cracked against riot shields. Elder Carver threw a chair at Captain Mercer. Church ladies with heavy purses swung at anyone in uniform who came near. "The video!" Layla shouted over the chaos. "Keep it playing." Amara scrambled back to the controls, fighting to keep the footage running as officers tried to reach the booth. Every screen still showed the truth. Impossible to ignore, impossible to deny. More people joined the fight. A teenager in a Letterman jacket tackled an officer going for his taser. A grandmother in her Sunday best hit another with her umbrella. Years of fear and rage exploded into action. Layla grabbed a microphone stand, using it to fend off two officers trying to flank her. Her muscles burned, but she would not back down. Not now, not ever again. "FBI, everyone freeze." Damon's voice cut through the mayhem, but the fighting continued. Bodies pressed and swayed. Blood and pepper spray stung Layla's eyes. Through the tears, she saw misses. Langston swung her cane again, saw Kane struggling with an officer twice his size. The truth played on, endless and damning, as East Haven tore itself apart in the morning light. The glass doors of the town hall burst open as the fighting spilled into the morning sun. Cameras flashed and news helicopters circled overhead, capturing every moment of East Haven's uprising. Layla stumbled down the concrete steps, still gripping the microphone stand. Behind her, Mrs. Langston's voice rang out. "Forward, children. Do not let them escape." The crowd surged onto the plaza. Captain Mercer barked orders to his state troopers, who formed a defensive line with riot shields. But for every officer who stepped forward, 3 citizens stepped up to face them. "Stand down," Mercer screamed, spittle flying. "This is your final warning." An elderly white man in overalls pushed to the front. "My granddaughter showed me that video," he said, pointing a weathered finger. "You are the ones who need to stand down." More voices joined in. A Hispanic mother, with tears streaming down her face. A white teenager in a fast food uniform. A black businessman in a torn suit. Years of fear and silence shattered as the people of East Haven found their voices. Chief Donnelly, eyes still red from the pepper spray, tried to slip away through the chaos. But Kane, despite his injured leg, blocked his path. Going somewhere, Chief Mrs. Langston's church ladies formed a circle around Donnelly, swinging purses and umbrellas. "The Lord's judgment has come," one shouted, landing a solid hit with her leather handbag. Amara appeared at Layla's side, clutching a laptop. "Look." She pointed to the news vans lining the street. "We are streaming live everywhere. They cannot hide anymore." The sound of sirens cut through the noise. Black SUVs with federal plates roared up to the plaza, lights flashing. Damon Brooks stepped out of the lead vehicle, flanked by stern-faced agents in FBI jackets. Behind them came a convoy of Department of Justice officials. "Federal agents." Damon's voice boomed through a megaphone. "Everyone stand where you are." Captain Mercer sneered. "This is a state police matter. This is a federal investigation into civil rights violations, corruption, and conspiracy." Damon cut him off. He pulled out a stack of papers. "I have warrants for Vernon Donnelly, Clifford Lang, and Michael Mercer, plus about 30 of their officers." The crowd parted as federal agents moved in. Mayor Lang tried to protest, straightening his tie with shaking hands. "Now see here, this is completely click." The handcuffs locked around his wrists. "Clifford Lang," the agent recited. You are under arrest for conspiracy against rights, obstruction of justice, and misuse of public funds. More agents surrounded Chief Donnelly. He did not resist as they cuffed him, his face a mask of defeat. You will regret this, Brooks, he muttered. The only regret, Damon replied, is that we did not stop you sooner. Captain Mercer was not going quietly. He shoved an agent and reached for his weapon. 3 FBI officers tackled him to the ground. Get off me, he snarled. I was maintaining order. You were terrorizing innocent people, Damon said, as they hauled Mercer up, and now you will answer for it. The plaza erupted in cheers as the corrupt leaders were led away. Mrs. Langston raised her cane in triumph, leading the crowd in an old freedom song. Even some of the local officers, those who had stayed silent out of fear, joined in the celebration. Kane limped over to Layla, grinning despite his pain. We did it. We actually did it. Amara hugged them both, sobbing. I am so sorry I betrayed you. I was so scared. You came back, Layla said, squeezing her hand. That is what matters. The morning sun climbed higher as more arrests were made. FBI evidence teams entered the police station and chief's mansion. News crews interviewed witnesses, while federal civil rights investigators took statements. Elder Carver helped an agent document the church burning. The Hispanic mother described the threats against her family. The white teenager talked about watching officers plant evidence. Years of secrets poured out into the light. Layla swayed on her feet, exhaustion finally catching up. The microphone stand slipped from her fingers. She had been running on adrenaline for so long, fighting so hard. Strong arms caught her as she stumbled. She looked up into her father's face, seeing the same tiredness there, the same relief. Daddy, she whispered. I have got you, baby girl, Damon said, holding her close. I have got you. Around them, the plaza filled with tears and laughter. Old women hugged young activists. Children danced between their legs. The morning air rang with freedom songs, with prayers of thanksgiving, with shouts of pure joy. Mrs. Langston's voice rose above the celebration. This is what justice looks like. This is what happens when we stand together. Layla pressed her face into her father's chest, breathing in his familiar scent. Her muscles ached, her bruises throbbed, but her heart was light. They had done it. They had actually done it. Through her tears, she watched her community embrace in the morning light. Black and white, young and old, united at last. The truth had set them free. The sun painted East Haven in shades of gold and promise. The morning news crews set up their equipment as citizens gathered on Main Street. Many still wearing bandages from yesterday's battle, but their faces shone with hope. Layla watched from her family's porch as neighbors helped clean up the debris. Mr.